Yep.
Hi.
A full bottle.
Y'all ready for Parcels After Dark or not?
Boom, we out here.
Well, Instagram is gonna die in an hour, so they have hour limit. Okay, y'all. Hi.
What's up?
Hello.
JP and Nori. Books with Bay. Chapter 8 of The Power of Now. Enlightened Relationships.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yes. Let's pin yours up here.
Like tomorrow we're gonna.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I am Nori, and this is JP.
What's up, everybody?
And we welcome to Books with Bay.
After
dark. Because y'all know we like to be here in the mornings, but
early
afternoons. But today is
after dark.
Today is here right now.
So what's up, everybody? What's up, Joel? What's up, Brent? Oh, Brent! What up, Brent? What up, Frat? I can see you in a minute.
Okay.
All right.
So today we're going to be talking about enlightened relationships.
Yep. This is chapter 8 in The Power of Now. If y'all following along, and we're going to start out today by talking about going deeply. Oh, wait, that's chapter 7. Enlightened relationships.
If you're in a relationship, can you just let us know? Put it in the comments. Let us know if you got a boo.
Tag your boo. Let them know that we're talking about enlightened relationships.
Yes.
What is an enlightened relationship?
It's cold in here.
It's hot. I'm already sweating.
Yo.
Put on some pants.
No. I don't want to put on pants.
After dark, and they decided no pants today.
I don't want to put on pants. Pants are stupid.
All right. So, enter the now from where you are. He starts out by talking. He has a question, as always. I always thought that true enlightenment is not possible except through love in a relationship between a man and a woman. Isn't this what makes us whole again? How can one's life be fulfilled until that happens? So he's starting off by talking about, in other words, you are waiting for an event in time to save you. It is not the core error that we've been talking about. Salvation is elsewhere in place or time. It is here and now. So at the start of this chapter, he's going in on how a lot of us think that we need relationships to be whole, or I got to find that other partner to make myself whole. So, and I think part of society has told us, oh, you go up, you get married, and then you become complete. You have a family, and that's when you have really made it. 2.5 kids, married, dog, house with the picket fence in the yard. And in other words, we're waiting on an event in time, something that's not happening right now. It's something that's in the future. And this chapter, I might say this every chapter, but this is my favorite chapter.
This is not every chapter.
Because it had me reflecting back on the past on a lot of relationships that I have.
Were you a fuckboy?
You have to define the.
You know if you was a fuckboy or not. Don't front.
No, I wouldn't say I was, but depending on your definition, exactly, I'm open to a new definition of what that is.
What did you behave in? What did you behave in a very unenlightened way in a relationship?
No, I actually think I was very, based on this chapter. I think I was very because I was never in a rush to, and you could attest to this. I wasn't in a rush to settle down. I really just wanted to enjoy each other and not necessarily look for a relationship. I figured I would eventually get married, but it wasn't like, oh, we got to get married right now, or I was even thinking about that. Versus a lot of the relationships I was in, it was typically the woman was trying to lock me down sooner than
apparently JP wasn't trying to be trapped by nobody in the streets. He says he wasn't a fuckboy, but he also wasn't trying to be locked down either.
So salvation is not elsewhere in place or time. It's here and now. And so I kind of felt that these women felt that the salvation was going to be us being together right now versus sometime down the road when we had a more time to get to know each other. But they felt like they knew me, and apparently they knew enough that this is what they wanted.
Well, I think when it comes down to relationships, it can often, especially depending on where you are in your life and what you've been taught, you may have an expectation of how a relationship is supposed to work.
Right.
You may have an expectation of being married by a certain age, having kids by a certain age, being in a certain position by a certain age in your life. And if you are in that, if you enter a relationship, or not an exclusive relationship, but if you're talking to someone, you may start making thoughts in your head around, is this going to be the one? Is this the person I'm going to be married with? Is this the person I'm going to stay with? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in relationships, that can really get caught up, and you can start creating ideas in your head of a potential future that's not real. And then you get irritated and upset when that future doesn't materialize.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I think relationships can be really, really tricky because a lot of us go into relationships with expectations that haven't been agreed upon. Mm-hmm. And then when people are like, I'm not doing that, you get an attitude because you feel like you've invested your time. And I know women in particularly, I've heard women and girlfriends say, like, I don't got time for this. I'm trying to be blah, 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 blah by blah, 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 blah. And that can really hinder your ability to actually get a thing that you want. Which is
understandable. Women can only have kids, to a certain age. And as you said, like, just society has told us that, hey, you're supposed to be married, mm-hmm. and you're supposed to find your man and lock it down.
Allegedly.
Okay.
So,
I got this whole page highlighted.
We're on 146. We're on 146. Every page can't be highlighted.
You're right. Every page can't be highlighted, but I highlighted this whole page.
I bet you did. So, I love that Eckhart starts with this conversation around salvation, because I think a lot of people go into relationships wanting to be saved, from other potential mates, wanting to be saved from their own dysfunction and their own drama. Mm-hmm. If you come from a family that has a lot of drama and a lot of stress, you may see your marriage as a way to exit out of that. Mm-hmm. Particularly women that married into the family, right? We are the ones that tend to take the last name of the person that we marry. It's kind of like your way of putting that behind you. It's kind of like starting over on the blank slate. So I think that there is this element of being saved when you enter a relationship, and the whole idea of the damsel in distress and the man is going to come save you and the man is the provider, that tends to be really present in relationships as well. So when he talks about salvation, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty spot on. And he says, happiness may be perceived as a heightened sense of aliveness attained through physical pleasure, or a more secure and more complete sense of self-attainment through some form of psychological gratification. So essentially what that means is that we think that when we get in relationships, that's going to satisfy us. That's going to be the gratification we've been waiting for. That's going to be the thing that's going to bring us it's going to be the solution to all of our problems. And that's not really the case. And then Eckhart goes on to say, most people have this idea, right, that when I obtain this or I'm free of that, then I'll be okay. Mm-hmm. This is the unconscious mindset that creates the illusion of salvation in the future. Well, if you are saying things like, well, once I get the next raise, I'm going to go on vacation, or once I hit the next milestone, I'm going to move to the new job, or once I achieve this, I'm going to finally have the kids, or whatever. You're constantly putting things up in the future. That's a manifestation of you thinking that the future is going to save you. Mm-hmm. When in reality, you can be saved right now. You can experience salvation right now. But a lot of us don't experience salvation right now because we think the future is when it's actually going to happen. Yes. And we live in the future instead of living in the present. And you cannot change things in the future or the past. The only place where you can take action is in the present, is in the now. And I think Eckhart really goes into that in this particular piece. He then says, true salvation is to know yourself as an inseparable part of timeless. Actually, let me back up a little bit. True salvation is fulfillment, peace, life in its fullness. It is to be who you are, to feel within you the good that has no opposite, the joy of being that depends on nothing outside itself. It is felt not as a passing experience, but as the abiding presence. True salvation is to know yourself as an inseparable part of the timeless form, one life form which exists which all that exists delivers its being. So he then describes what salvation is, right? So salvation is not what we think it is because it doesn't rely on somebody else. It can be achieved within ourselves. And I really connected with that.
Yeah, she has the whole paragraph highlighted there.
I do.
He then goes on to say, your mind is telling you you can't get there from here. Something needs to happen, or you need to become this or that before you can be free and fulfilled. It is saying, in fact, that you need time, that you need to find, sort out, do, achieve, acquire, become, or understand something before you can completely be free. And this really spoke to me because particularly the words achieve and acquire, and he's talking more about, just personal relationships, our relationships with money, with the things that we want, our goals, and also our friends and family. And for me, I wanted something to happen now. I think I needed these things. I think I needed to achieve. I think I needed to acquire before I could be free and before I am be complete. So, this chapter is more than just, personal and romantic relationships. It's also our relationships with the things that we want.
Yeah. And then I have, you think that you can get them. No, you think that you can get there from where you are at this moment because you are not yet complete or good enough. But the truth is that here and now is the only point where you can get there. You can get there by realizing that you are there already. You find God the moment you realize that you don't need to seek God. And that was kind of like, what? Whoa.
So what you're saying is if I stop looking, I'll find it?
If you stop looking, you'll find it. Because then you start thinking that it's only in a certain place. And you start seeing that it's everywhere.
Right. I found her in Rochester.
He did.
Okay.
He did find her in Rochester. And he goes and says, you cannot do this in the future. You do it in the now or not at all. And even when it comes to when people get married and they do their vows, if you have a traditional ceremony, there's some language there about men completing you and you completing your spouse, and this language around completion, right? And when we got married, I was very adamant about none of that language being in there because I don't think JP complete me. I think JP compliments me, and that to me is more important because no, nigga, I'm ready home.
Don't worry. And that was something we both agreed on, or both knew going into our relationship was like, I'm gonna be good with you or not. It's cool if we can do this, but if not, I'm gonna be good. And I think a lot of people don't have that attitude. It's like, oh, this is the person that's meant for me. If I don't have this person, I'm not gonna be complete. Absolutely. And it really sets them up for failure in their relationship when maybe they don't get something that they think they should from that person in the relationship.
Yeah.
All right. It goes on to start talking about love-hate relationships.
That's going to resonate with some of y'all because even we went boxing this week and our instructor, his name is Pete, and we told Pete that we work with couples and we help them communicate better, among other things that we do. And he was like, oh, I need that because I suck at relationships. I've been with the same chick for 11 years and we hate each other. We had this love-hate relationship. And I feel like a lot of people say that about their relationships. I don't have a love-hate relationship. I just have a love relationship. Yeah. If that's boring.
Yeah, that's something also that I, reading this chapter, I've always been, my bar is we're not going to take it to these heights. We're not going to go back and forth. We're going to wait till we're on the same level and have a conversation like adults. So unless and until you access the conscious frequency of presence, all relationships, and particularly intimate relationships, are deeply flawed and ultimately dysfunctional. So
that's interesting.
So if y'all not vibrating on the same frequency, it ain't gonna work. Or is it gonna be a lot of dysfunction? So that's where that fighting happens. That's where that back and forth happens. And I know some of those relationships that it always seems like these people are fighting. It's like, why are you guys even together if this is how your relationship is? Like, why even go through all this? I would rather be single than to have to do this day in and day out.
And the interesting thing is that people think that if you don't have a love-hate relationship with your spouse, they think something is wrong with you.
Why y'all so happy all the time?
Why y'all don't fight? Why y'all don't curse each other out? Like, why? I need a little bit of drama in my relationship. I gotta spice things up.
What?
I'm good on
I think
that.
a lot of that also has to do with your examples of relationships and who you get to see in those relationships. I particularly didn't grow up a lot. Like my dad was in the home, and my parents got a divorce when I was around 7. So a lot of the stuff that maybe would have affected that I didn't see. And then after that, I didn't have a mom and a dad in the house. It was just mom.
Right.
So I got to kind of pick and choose and see other relationships outside of the home. A lot of people's parents may be the ones that are affecting their relationships, and they're taking their cues from how their parents were, or maybe their grandparents. And for me, I had examples of good, what I thought were good healthy relationships versus the ones that are like, no. And I had an aunt, and I remember telling her, I don't know if it was when I was younger, but even I was like older. I was like, oh, yeah, I thought you would have left him a long time ago.
He was such a wild kid, y'all. Like he was telling his family all sorts of wild things as a kid. Like, he's fascinating.
Right, because I'm like, I didn't see how that served them. And he goes on to talk about, I'm going to talk about later, that people stay in relationships for different things, whether it be security, whether it be money, maybe it's for the kids. They think that those things are important, and they are. Not to say that that's nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't necessarily mean, or that's definitely not going to be an enlightened relationship if you're staying together just to fulfill or check some box that society says you need to do.
Absolutely.
So on page 148, which once again I pretty much have the whole page highlighted.
Okay, you're just gonna highlight the whole page always.
What you got on 148?
So on page 148, I have, it seems that most love relationships become love-hate relationships before long. Love can then turn into a savage attack, feelings of hostility, or complete withdrawal of affection on the flick of a switch. So essentially, there's a lot of people when they begin relationships, and they can turn them to their partner, and they can do that by withdrawing their attention from their partner in the form of sex.
Yes.
I've heard people say things like, "Oh, you ain't getting none tonight. You ain't getting none because you're not acting right." Like, I've heard those words expressed before. I personally, I don't think I've expressed those words in the past, but there's a chance I have. Who knows? But that's something that people think of normal. Like, people say things like that, and they also think is the right course of action. Like, I've heard older women say things like, "Oh, you need to hold some from him so that he don't get it," because that's how you gotta train. You gotta train your man.
Even if you're wrong, he still doesn't get it.
Yeah, and then he says, it is not uncommon for couples to become addicted to those cycles. Their drama makes them feel alive. Yeah. When a balance between the positive and negative polarities is lost and the negative destruction cycles occur with increasing frequency and intensity, which tends to happen sooner or later, then it will not be long before the ship finally collapses. So essentially, Eckhart states that people like the drama. It makes them feel like things are exciting and juicy. Yeah. And because they like the drama, that leads their relationships to die. Because love cannot live in that environment. Love cannot live in a space where there's always drama going on. Yeah. And as a result of that, people tend to end those relationships.
Yeah. And I could always tell when whoever I was talking to, they were withdrawing because they weren't getting what they want. And I'm just like, well, this isn't going to last long because I'm not about that.
You're not interested in
I'm not interested
in that life. What do you have next?
Did you read the Not True?
No, I have not read that.
Go ahead.
He says, okay. He says, I'm speaking of what are commonly called romantic relationships. So in here, Eckhart specifically talking about romantic relationships, okay? Not of true love, which has no opposite because it arises from beyond the mind. So if you are experiencing right now true love, that has no opposite because true love, according to Eckhart, has no opposite because it doesn't come from the mind. Love as a continuous state is as yet very rare, as rare as conscious human beings. Brief and elusive glimpses of love, however, are possible whenever there is a gap in the stream of mind. And this really resonated with me because the first time I read this, and I think I remember now, the first time I read this thing here, I was like, damn, that means I don't love JP. Like, I don't have true love for JP. And that was a bit of a wake-up call and like an interesting thing.
True love for me?
No, because my love for you is conditional.
Oh, it is?
Well, it used to be at the time I read this.
Oh, okay. The first time.
The first time I read it, it was like I had this conditional love for you. Like, it's like, I love you if you do these things. Yeah. I love you if you do not do these things. I love you. I'll be with you. I love you if blah, 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 which is different than I'll be with you, right? Because you can love someone conditionally, but you can also love someone unconditionally and not be with them. I've gotten to the point now where I love JP unconditionally. Like, no matter what he does, I am always going to love him. However, that doesn't mean I'm always going to be married to him, but I'm always going to love him. So if he chooses to do something that is not in alignment with what I want in our relationship, I may walk away, but I'm always going to love him. I'm always going to be grateful for him and for the season we experienced together as a couple. And I think that's the thing about unconditional love, is loving someone in spite of what they say and in spite of what they do. Like your mother has unconditional love for you. For most people, I can't speak on everybody else.
I don't know if people, even stuff like with your mom.
Yeah, I don't even know that. Some people's mom have very conditional love for them too. You know, I remember Jada and Will Smith, they both talking about this type of love where it's like, oh, you gonna marry somebody else, but we all gonna be living in the same house. Everybody gonna be living in the same house. You, your new boo, me and my new boo, we are just gonna be different sides of the house, but we all gonna be in the same house because we are family. And when people heard her say that, they were like, oh, that was weird. But I kind of get it now. I get the idea that you love people deeply and you want to be with them, or you want to be in their space, share space with them, in spite of how things may go differently. So if we're a little tired, it's because it's late and we've been working out. So.
Yeah, I got it in today. I found a new app right here.
JP's always finding alleged new apps. So this part really resonated because of that. And I think after I read that, I was really challenged because I had to understand, do I really love my husband unconditionally? Like, do I love him in spite of what he says, in spite of what he does? And I realized that at the time I didn't. And then I had to decide, am I going to allow that unconditional love to live in my relationship? Or am I going to just continue with conditional love? And then I decided to go for the latter. So,
okay, yeah.
All right, what you got for us?
So it's not all negative, guys. There is some good things about relationships on the pod.
Wait, before you say that, though, I want to read this part. It is also easier to recognize the source of negativity in your partner than to see it in yourself.
Yeah.
That's
huge.
That's major because it can manifest in many forms: possessiveness, jealousy, control, withdrawal, and unspoken resentment that need to be right, insensitivity and self-absorption, emotional demands and manipulation, the urge to criticize, judge, blame, or attack, anger, unconscious revenge for past pain. You know what I'm talking about here? What I'm talking about here is when people be like, remember 2 weeks ago when you did blah, 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 blah. Or remember last year or 10 years ago when I asked you to do
people
something.
People are still holding on.
People are holding on to all sorts of things. And because of that, because people are holding on to all these things, it really impacts them and keeps them from having a really, really loving relationship.
And they can't be conscious.
They can't be conscious.
Can't be conscious at all. And that's huge. You know, when I learned that anytime I'm criticizing her or criticizing anyone else, it's really I need to look inside of myself and see what the hell is going on. That was huge because I'm pretty sure at that moment our relationship improved.
Yes.
Because the things that Yunori was doing wasn't necessarily because she hated me. She didn't want to see that. She wanted to see me suffer. It was actually, no, bruh, you are the one who's causing the pain. You are the one who's causing the suffering. Mm-hmm. And I think if a lot of us would learn that, the amount of conflict in relationships would decrease drastically.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of hard because you have been trained. Depending on what was in your environment, right? So depending on what your examples of relationships are, you're gonna think that that's the norm.
Yes.
So if in your household people had a lot of argument, a lot of fighting. You might think that that is how everybody behaves. So you're going to want to protect yourself from that when you start dating. Well, if you had an environment where people are really open and they don't have any boundaries, you may not have boundaries either, because that's what you thought was the norm. So a lot of this, we acknowledge that it can be really challenging, but if you are available to creating space to experience it and to learn it, you have a healthier relationship. You have a healthier marriage, because marriage is really about making it work with someone, and not making it work, I think, in the sense that people use it, where it's kind of like, oh, infidelities, like look past that type of stuff. But it's more so like making it, realizing your role in the situation. A lot of times, I think earlier in our relationship, there was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blaming. Well, you did this and you did that, and a lot of that back and forth. And I think 2018, I would say, is that when you got the 4 tendencies? 2017. 2000, yeah, because that's when I was going through depression, and you were like, what's going on in here? How can I understand her better? 2017, we got this book that we'll read with you at some point, and it really helped us. It helped JP understand me better, which helped him create space for me so that I can be who I was, or behave in my natural habitat, as he calls it. And as a result of that, and Eckhart gets into this later, we were able to become more conscious in our relationship. And I think a lot of that comes from someone has to be willing to create space for the other person. And I think JP and I were really clear on, I think that's when we decided, okay, we're gonna make up our marriage. We're gonna decide what stays. We're gonna do an inventory of what everybody got. We're gonna do an inventory of what you got, and the inventory of what I got, and then we're gonna decide what stays in the relationship and what goes. And then that really turned things around for us.
All right,
onto the positive things.
On the positive side, you are in love with your partner.
I love you too.
This is at first a deeply satisfying state.
Honeymoon. That's the honeymoon phase.
That's
the honeymoon phase.
You feel intensely alive. Your existence has suddenly become meaningful because someone needs you, wants you, and makes you feel special, and you do the same for him or her. When you are together, you feel whole. The feeling can become so intense that the rest of the world fades into insignificance. I don't have any worries when I'm with them. The whole world just goes away. All my pains and problems just melt away when I'm in their arms. It's so wonderful.
It's so safe.
However,
Eckhart giveth and Eckhart
real quick, next paragraph. However, you may also have noticed that there is a neediness and a clinging quality to that intensity. You become addicted to the other person. He or she acts on you like a drug. You are on a high when the drug is available, but even the possibility or the thought that he or she might no longer be there for you can lead to jealousy, possessiveness, attempts at manipulation through emotional blackmail, blaming, and accusing, fear of loss. We're back to that fear again.
And this clinginess.
Clingy, yeah.
I think a lot of, I don't know if I've been called clingy before, but I've definitely engaged in clingy behavior. And I think it's often men that label women as clingy. Hey. I think it's often men that label women as clingy, but men can also be clingy too. Because if you have someone that finally gives you quote unquote purpose, then you want to continue to have that attention. You want to continue to experience that attention with that person. And relationships have a way of exposing that, of exposing the things within you that are lacking. So I think for us, when we got together, I got to a point that I was following JP around the house. I'm not even lying. I wish I was lying, but I'm not. Like, he'll be in the bedroom, and back then our apartment used to be a lot smaller than now. Yeah. So he used to be in the bedroom, and I'd be like, I want to be in the bedroom. He used to go to the living room. I want to be in the living room. It's like, I don't want to lose sight of this person that loves me. And
really had 2 rooms, so I could only go in the
but so many spaces. And I think sometimes relationships bring out that clinginess, and we can be clingy because we finally feel that we are needed, that we are loved, that we are cared for, and we want to make sure that this person doesn't withdraw that love from us, that attention from us. And in order to do that, we need to be on their face 24/7.
24/7.
If you're just joining us, we're currently reviewing chapter 8 of The Power of Now, and it is titled Enlightened Relationships. So that's what we're talking about. He says, did you read this already?
I did. We're now at, if the other person does leave you, this can give rise to the most intense hostility and most profound grief and despair. In an instant, loving tenderness can turn into savage attacks of dreadful grief.
People don't like it when you don't give them their attention.
Where's the love now, bitches? It's gone. Pew, pew. Uh-oh. Get back here. You thought you were going somewhere, huh?
And once people get clingy, if you are the person that really loves, like, after that honeymoon, during that honeymoon phase, it can be really clingy, period, because you are into the person, y'all are into each other, y'all like fornicating all over the house, you're having fun.
What this reminds me of is when people can't let their other significant other leave the house without texting them or
be like, where y'all at? Where y'all at?
I just left the house. I'm coming back. I'm gonna see you again. I don't need to text you every time I leave the house. You don't have to check in with me every hour. I know one relationship where somebody's always checking in with them, but we won't speak on that tonight.
Yeah. And sometimes when JP leaves the house, when he goes off to hang out with his friends, I'm not really the person to text him, because I've learned that that's not something that he cares for. That's not something that, he wants me to be doing. And more importantly, we are together, but we love our own space.
Yes.
So because we both love our own space, I'd be like, bye. I'm gonna see you later. Like,
I'll be waiting for you. Like, you don't want to leave the house today? You ain't got no class to go to?
Nah, I'm good.
You got no friends to go have lunch with?
I got no friends to go have lunch with. I don't. And I think a lot, like, I remember one time I asked you, like, if you missed me or something like that, and you were like, well, you haven't been that long. You haven't been gone that long for me to miss you. And I'm like, that's a valid point. Like, if you're always with that person, then when are they going to miss you? And I think for us, I decided, he's gone. I'm gonna do my own thing while he's gone, and that's why I don't hit him up when he's gone. And he also doesn't hit me up either. And then at some point, I'm gonna be honest, it was hard for me at the beginning, because I honestly love talking to JP. I love hanging out. We have so much fun together. But it was hard at the beginning. So I decided to kind of play this little game. I don't know if I ever told him this. Where I will wait until, like, he hits me up. Like, I'd be like, I'm not hitting him up when he's going with his boys. I'm just gonna, hold off on my attention, as he stated earlier, and wait to see if JP hits me up. And then he will hit me up. Like, he'll be like, oh, hey, babe. Like, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I thought you're saying, with your little friends. And he'll be like, oh, yeah, just checking in with you, blah, 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 blah. And now it just became that kind of a game. Yeah. And over time, I just stopped hitting him up I just never really hit him up when he was with his friends. Yeah. And then, which is funny, because sometimes when I'm gone and he does start missing me, he'll send an emoji, like just an emoji to let me know, like, hey, I'm thinking about you. And then the other thing was, when we used to live in DC, and I used to come home later than I usually will come home, he will check in and be like, hey, he just send the emoji to let me know that he needs to make sure that I'm good, because I was coming later than when I said I was gonna come, or I was walking through an area that might have not been as safe. So that doesn't mean that we share care for one another, but we're not always do it in a way that other people are doing. And like, if JP could be gone for like 10 hours. He ain't gonna see a text from me. I'm busy. I'm doing other things. I'm gonna see him when he comes home. I got other things to do.
Please let me do my thing.
Bye. We still on page. What page are we on?
We're on 148 now. I got the whole page title. I don't know. 150?
No, 150.
All right, 150.
We already talked about it.
150. You're right. All right.
Page 150.
We're reading The Power of Now, Chapter 8, Enlightened Relationships.
So someone asked Eckhart, why should we become addicted to another person? That's a really good question. Why should we become addicted to another person? And he says, the reason why the romantic love relationship is such an intense and universally sought out after experience is that it seems to offer liberation from a deep-seated state of fear. Once again, we are all afraid.
Our buddy fear.
A deep-seated state of fear, need, lack, and incompleteness. Excuse me. That is part of the human condition in the unredeemed, unenlightened state. There is physical as well as psychological dimension to the state. So essentially, the reason why we do all of this is because we are afraid to be alone. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be alone. The root of this physical urge is a spiritual one. The longing for an end of duality, a return to, maybe I went too far ahead. Yeah. On the physical level, you are obviously not whole, nor will you ever be. You are either a man or a woman, which is to say one half of the whole. On this level, the longing for wholeness, the return to oneness, manifests as a male-female attraction. So here we learn that on the physical level, on this form, we are not whole. Mm-hmm. Because he's a man, I'm a woman, and as a result, we have that attraction for one another, right? However, it is almost irresistible urge for union with the opposite energy polarity. So that's why you're attracted to people, because you're not whole. You know, you feel like you're not whole on a physical level and you want to have that company. The root of this physical urge is a spiritual one, the longing for an end of duality, a return to the state of wholeness. Sexual union is the closest you can get to the state of physical level. Mm-hmm. So that's why it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. It's about the sexual union. It's about that sexual connection. That's really when people can get that freedom that they're looking for. And that's why people become addicted to sex, because they get a freedom from that sex. They get that release, and they want it over and over and over again. And
this is why it's the most deeply satisfying experience the physical realm can offer. So it gives us that completeness, because when you two come together for that brief moment,
absolutely,
nothing else matters. And you feel really, really good.
Sex is awesome. I mean, sex with the right person is awesome. If you are having not enjoyable sex, then maybe you have a different perspective on that.
Maybe we can coach you.
Maybe we can talk to you about it. Because we're having really great sex. Right. Not that you asked, but
you are given a tantalizing glimpse of heaven, but you are not allowed to dwell there and find yourself again in a separate body. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just temporary. We get to that moment and it feels like heaven. After dark bay.
After dark bay, sleepy bay.
Gives you a tantalizing glimpse for just a moment of heaven. Mm-hmm. So what are we all searching for? We're searching for our heaven on earth, and that's the closest thing we're getting to it until it separates our body, and then after the nut, it's over.
It's done.
It's done.
Get off me.
So exactly, and that's why.
2 seconds ago, it'd be like, oh my
God. That's why you see it on sitcoms and stuff. It's like after that, it's like, all right, go to your corner. Oh, bye. You leaving? Kicking her out after we get done. Time to go. 6 a.m, I'll be kicking her out.
He says, as long as you are, we call it the same thing. As long as you identify with the mind, you have an externally derived sense of self. Mm. That is to say, you can get your sense of you get your sense of who you are from things that ultimately have nothing to do with who you are. Mm-hmm. Your social role, possessions, external appearance, successes and failures, belief system. This false mind-made self, the ego, feels vulnerable, insecure, and is always seeking new things to identify with, to give it a feeling that it exists. But nothing is ever enough to give it lasting fulfillment. Its fear remains, its sense of lack and neediness remains. So as we talked earlier in previous chapters, the ego wants to stay alive. And in order for that to happen, you have to feed it, you have to nurture it, you have to give it things. And until it achieves those things, it's always gonna want more, because once you achieve something, you feel like now on to the next thing. I was very much like that. Like I would accomplish a goal and I'm like, this is not even worth celebrating because I need to move on to the next thing. Like I remember when I was on TV the first time, and I didn't even really process the fact that I was on TV. I think when somebody was like, I think Ben was like, oh yeah, babe, you were on TV, and I was like, anybody could be on TV. That was literally my answer. I'm like, anybody could be on TV. He's like, no. I'm like, have you watched CNN? Anybody can be on TV. It's not special. And it was like, it actually was a very special thing, like quote unquote special thing for me and for what I was doing. But I didn't allow myself to enjoy that because my perspective was that anybody could be on TV, and it wasn't really a big deal. So again, the fulfillment doesn't come from, it's fleeting. You feel fulfilled when you first get the thing, but then you're still moving on to the next one. And that's kind of like the hustler mentality, I think, where you're always like, you're not processing, you're just kind of moving on to the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. And a lot of people do that with relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So why do we become so obsessed with people? Well, you now have a single focal point that replaces them all, that gives meaning to your life.
Oh, man.
And through which you define your identity, the person you are in love with.
That's my boo. That's my baby. That's my girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's my woman.
I think the same happens with kids, by the way. The people that have kids and then suddenly it's like, I am no longer Nori, I am Nori mother or whoever it is.
You know, I do see, I look at a lot of profiles of people on Facebook and it's like, Nicole's mom. And I'm like, well, what's your name? Like,
Nicole's mom. You're deriving your sense of identity from that. And if that's you and it's hitting a nerve, well, that's your ego talking.
Read this book.
That's your ego talking. And I see it a lot of people are like, oh, I'm my kid's best friend, or I am so-and-so's mom. And that's just how they define themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's because that's where you get your identity from. Or people that are like really about what they do, like people that get really in their feelings when you don't address them by their title. Like if someone has a PhD and you don't call them Dr. So-and-so, they take that really personally because they feel like, I have a PhD, I'm a doctor, you need to be calling me doctor.
They would definitely attach to that.
They definitely attach to that identity. So I personally don't care. I don't care at all really what you call me, but some people get really attached to that. And if you have like, if you feel like you've worked so hard for your degree, you might really feel like you need to
attachment to the past.
To my accomplishment. You need to acknowledge, put some respect on my name. That's what they really feel like. What matters is that the underlying feeling of incompleteness, of fear, lack, and unfulfillment, so characteristic of the egoic state, are no longer there. Or are they? Have they been dissolved, or do they continue to exist underneath the happy surface? So people think that once they get in these relationships, everything is great, the ego is gone, we're just all happy and kumbaya together, fornicating all over the apartment. But then reality sits in, and then the ego decides that it needs more. Mm-hmm. You cannot love your partner one moment and attack him or her the next. True love has no opposite.
Mm. True love has no opposite. And a lot of people think the opposite of love is hate. And that's not quite true.
According to Eckhart, it's not.
Right. Love has no opposite.
Mm-hmm.
If your love has an opposite, then it's not love, but a strong ego need for a more complete and deeper sense of self, a need that the other person temporarily meets. Mm. It is the ego's substitute for salvation, and for a short time, it almost does feel like it feels like salvation. Where did short come from? It was right there. And for a short time, it almost does feel like salvation. Little time, short time.
When those painful feelings reappear, you feel them even more. Oh, I went up a little bit. But there comes a point when your partner behaves in ways that fail to meet your needs, or rather those of your ego. And I know we can relate to this. When your partner stops doing the things you want them to do, and you're like, why I gotta repeat myself? Why I gotta continue to say the same thing over and over again?
Let me tell you something. Don't ever say that stuff in a relationship.
Say what you want and you'll learn.
I'm out of here.
You say what you want and you will learn from your relationships. Okay. We're going to continue going because I can get into this. He says, when those painful feelings, so now that the partner is no longer doing the things that you want to do, right? And you cannot control them because you thought that it was love, but now you see that really isn't. He says, when those painful feelings reappear, you feel them even more strong than before. And what is more, you now perceive your partner as the cause of those feelings. This means that you project them outward and attack the other with all the savage violence that is a part of your pain. So at some point, Hi, Tony. At some
Hey,
point, you
Tony.
start feeling like your partner. You start feeling like your partner is making you miserable. You start feeling like your partner is destroying your life. You start feeling like your partner don't love you no more, and because of that, you're sad, and you're living a horrible life because you put all of those bags in on that emotional basket. And now that that reality setting in and your ego is like, I want more, and your partner is not giving into that, you blame them for what you feel. Right. And that's one thing that I see happening in a lot of relationships where people, they feel like, oh, it's their partner's fault. Like their partner is the reason why they're not happy. Their partner is the reason why they're miserable. Their partner is the reason why they haven't pursued their career, or they haven't done this and they haven't done that. When in reality, that's your call. You have the power to make these decisions for yourself. You allowing that relationship to go in that way. And that can be really challenging for people to accept, because most people don't like to take responsibility for themselves, if at all.
This means that you project them outward and attack the other with the most savage violence that is part of your pain. So this can't get nothing to do with them. This is all you. Oh, yeah. This is all things from your past. Maybe they were done to you, maybe expectations that were met. Or these are things that you're bringing from the future that you expect this person to fulfill for you. So just remember that it's not them, it's you.
Every addiction arises from an unconscious refusal to face and move through your own pain.
It's yours.
Every addiction starts with pain and ends with pain. Whatever the substance you are addicted to, alcohol, food, legal or illegal drugs, or a person, you are using something or somebody to cover up your pain. Hi, Sharon. So here, Eckhart gets really real with y'all, right? And with us, is that via that everything we do is rooted, if we're trying to cover it up with someone, it's pain. So if your partner is hitting some nerves with you, that's because that pain is already there. And he even says it right here. They do not cause pain and unhappiness. So your partner doesn't cause pain or unhappiness. They bring out the pain and unhappiness that's already within you. So your partner is not the reason why you feel how you feel. You already feel like that. They're just the reason. They're just the thing that's bringing it up. They're bubbling it to the surface. And a lot of people struggle with that because they want to blame that into somebody else. If it's on me, that means I gotta be the one to do something about it.
You gotta fix it.
And then that means it's not them. And we don't like that. We like it when it's our partner's fault, because then they gotta fix it. We don't like to admit that we have to work within ourselves so we can become, we can make the relationship stronger and whole. We like to think that they need to fix it. They the problem. I'm good. They don't know what they're doing. And if he will only listen to me, we'll be good.
Yeah, that's that resistance we talk about again. And that's all in the mind. It's our mind not wanting to change, to accept new information that goes against what we've been taught or what we believe.
Then I have, do you have anything else on that page?
Nope.
Okay. Then I have the first thing that they may encounter. This is one of the reasons most people are always trying to escape from present moment and are seeking some kind of salvation in the future. The first thing that they might encounter is, if they focus their attention on the now, is their own pain. And this is what they fear. If they only knew how easy it is to access it in the now, the power or presence that dissolves the past and its pain, the reality that dissolves the illusion. So essentially, Eckhart says the reason why people struggle so much is because they don't want to pause and feel their own pain.
Right. We're really all just trying to avoid being uncomfortable.
Hey, ladies.
With the drugs and we escape. We use these different things to escape because who wants to be in pain, right?
It sucks. Pain sucks. Right? We can all agree on that. And who wants to feel that pain? Nobody. Nobody wants to feel the pain. So if you don't want to feel the pain, then obviously you're going to want to ignore it.
I don't think that pain sucks. It's just how we view pain that sucks. Because sometimes when I'm working out, I say it hurts so good because I know that the workout and the pain from the workout is going to get me to where I want to go.
Yeah, but in that, the pain sucks, at least from my perspective. The pain sucks. The outcome might be enjoyable, but in the moment, it does suck a little bit, at least from my perspective. Like, it doesn't always feel good. That's all I'm saying. When I was a kid getting my beatings, I wasn't like, oh yeah, this feels so good. This hurt good.
Well, that's different. That's someone else taking out their pain on you. I'm talking about things that you're going through.
Well, I guess we can argue that there are different types of pain. and different types of pain can bring different emotions, because some people are into pain in the bedroom, and that's some sort of pleasure. For those of you that watched the 50 Shades of Grey, for those of you that are into that.
Avoidance of relationships in an attempt to avoid pain is not the answer either. The pain is there anyway.
Ugh.
So how many of us aren't dating people because we don't want to get into a relationship and be in the pain? So, I'm reading this again and I'm thinking, that was me as well, not wanting to be in some relationships, thinking if I get into some relationship, I'm going to cause pain by my action, where regardless of what I'm going to do, there's going to be that pain there anyway.
Absolutely. For love to flourish, the light of your presence needs to be strong enough so that you can no longer be taken over by the thinker or the pain body and mistake them for who you are.
Pain body.
So in order for this to work,
back again, they got the whole page highlighted.
I do have the whole page highlighted, but we won't go through the whole.
You got a whole bunch of pages highlighted this chapter.
That just means you can talk about anything. Like that. The Power in Our chapter, chapter 8, Enlightened Relationships, is a really, really thorough chapter. And if you're someone that has struggled a lot with relationships in the past, this is a chapter that can bring a lot of enlightenment to you on how to bring more joy and peace into your relationship. I'm not saying that the process is going to be easy, but it's simple and you can do it if you wanted to. And I think this is one of the chapters that's more practical out of the ones that we read so far. And it's a really easy read, because I know in chapter 7, we talked about how how we were getting headaches. So I was like, there was a lot the mind was trying to wrap itself around. But in this particular chapter, there's a lot, it's an easier process for your mind to comprehend and wrap itself around. So how do you have made room for love, for joy, for peace? First, you stop judging yourself, and then you start judging your partner. The greatest catalyst for change in a relationship is complete acceptance of your partner as he is or she is, without needing to judge or change them in any way. Do we really accept our partners as they are? Do you really not want to change your partner?
People are trying
to change people all the time. Women are, I'm not saying ladies, we the only ones that want to change people, but we are known to be like, I'm trying to change him. We have been known.
Train your man.
We have been known to say things like that about men. And the idea that you're going to change someone, if you go into the relationship thinking, I'm going to change this person, you're about to be single. Because you can't change. Hey, Tuan, you can't change people. People have to change for themselves because they want to. And it could be really challenging if you think you're going to change somebody. JP and I did not start to experience, I would say, a deeper level of joy in our relationships until he decided that he wasn't going to try to change me and the things that I did. And instead, he was just going to let me do them. And then this is the crazy thing. If you do not try to change your partner, if you let your partner be great,
let your partner make their own
mistakes, let them make their own mistakes, your partner's gonna start realizing that, oh shit, is that what I'm like? Oh, that's a little, I don't like that. And that's what started happening with me. Like, I started realizing that this was all me. Like, when you look around at the mess and you be like, there's nobody here that I can blame for this. This is literally all me. That's a big wake-up call. And your partner will get there faster if you get out of the way instead of you trying to nag them for it. And I think that's a place where people really struggle, because we think we can change people. We think that we can push people to do what we want. But in the process to try to push them to do what we want, we don't let them learn the lesson for themselves. And if we just leave them alone, we may get what we want. But that doesn't mean you will. But it's the idea of not changing your partner. And I think it wasn't until JP and I were like, you know what? That's JP. He's doing his own thing. That's Nori. She's doing her own thing. That really we began to experience another level of peace in our relationship. Because then it wasn't like, oh, JP's tripping. He's doing this to destroy my life. It was like, I'm just going to let JP do him. And then I'm going to do me. And I think that allows us to create space for one another in a different way. A lot of us don't want to create space for who our partner is. We want to create space. We want our partners to be who our ego says they need to be. And Eckhart gets into that.
You about to close up the book? What you doing?
No, I'm just touching things so that I can stay awake.
Okay, we do have a lot to go here.
So we might have to split this one into two parts.
We're less than halfway through it, so let's go for a little bit longer, and then we can.
Yeah.
So part 2 after dark or during the day tomorrow.
During the day tomorrow.
So he starts a new section here, and it's talking about love is not selective, just as the light of the sun is not selective. It does not make one person special. It is not exclusive. Key point. Now, exclusivity is not the love of God, but the love of ego. However, the intensity with which true love is felt can vary. There may be one person who reflects your love back to you more clearly and more intensely than others. And if that person feels the same towards you, it can be said that you are in love with relationship with him or her.
Okay, so exclusivity is the ego thing. It is the ego that doesn't want to be sharing the peanut oil the vag around, right? That's the ego.
She bet not have no more partners but me.
It's the ego that be like, I can't sleep with somebody, I can't marry somebody that has had more numbers.
She got more numbers than me. Actually, she got double digits. I can't be with her. I got bros who think like that. I know other people who think like that as well. And it's all the ego saying that you're special, that you're more special than other one. We've talked about our sexuality. We laugh at that stuff because, we're the numbers, it don't matter. We're really out here, once again, being in the now, enjoying our lives, enjoying other people, and just enjoying the love. And we wanted our light to shine everywhere. And anybody who we were attracted to, anybody who we felt a connection with, we wanted to get to know them better and feel that attraction.
And I also didn't want to have any regrets. Like, if I wanted to sleep with somebody, I'm sleeping with that person. I'm like, I'm not about to be like, oh man, I wish I would have done it. And no, that's stupid. Like, I'm not doing that. And I think a lot of people get in relationships with this idea that they have to be holy, they have to be perfect, they have to be pure, and then they find out that their relationship is not what they thought it needed to be, and then they start feeling bad and resentful. They have resentment towards their partner because they're like, I saved myself for you, I saved all these things for you, and this is what it's like. One thing people used to, I used to ask people, and I know it's being a little facetious, but I used to ask people that would tell me they didn't want to have sex before marriage. I used to ask them, like, what if you get in it and it sucks? And they'll be like, well, I wouldn't know it sucks. And I'm like, oh, that's even more tragic. Because what if you get in with a partner and it sucks and you don't know it sucks? And now you're here having terrible sex because you don't know, you decided that you wanted to wait on something and not have experience. Ignorance is not bliss because somebody knows it sucks. And that may not be you, but somebody in that relationship knows.
There have been women I've dated where the sex it didn't work because we were two different types of people. I'm a feeler. That person may have been more person who thinks in the head. They didn't like touching. They didn't like feeling, which to me are an essential part of having sex and having a romantic relationship. So to find out that on the other side of marriage, that sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. I think the other thing about sex too is like a lot of times women have been taught to view sex in a certain way. Like there are women that have been taught not to touch themselves. I don't know of any men that has been told you should not touch yourself.
I think at one point we've been told, I don't know if it was church, but masturbation is a sin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that in the Bible? That's like explicit?
Well, what is really explicit in the Bible? Like we get all these rules that are from the church or from the Bible that no one can really point to a scripture that says don't masturbate.
Let me know if it's on the Bible. Let me know if in the Bible it says that you can't masturbate.
You can't beat that beat.
Drop the verse on the comments because we have open minds here and we're willing to learn. Let me know if it explicitly states in the Bible that masturbation is a sin.
Yeah.
Not interpretation from your pastor, but like actually explicitly on the Bible. That's what I'm looking for right now. Are we still over here or did you move on already?
I think we can still be over here. What you got?
It's fine. Let's move on.
What we're gonna do, we're gonna go up into relationships as a spiritual practice. So we got just another page here. So what you got?
Sure, we could probably go a little bit longer than that. Hi y'all. let's yeah, we can actually go through. Okay, let's go to that part.
Like,
let's do what you said. Let's do what you said.
All right, guys, we're gonna
go a little bit longer. Okay, so on this page 155, let's hang out there for a second. He says, even in an otherwise addictive relationship, there may be moments when something more real shines through. Moments when both you and your partner's mind briefly subside and the pain body is temporarily. Oh, wait, do we do this part? No, we didn't. Okay. Oh, yeah, you did. And temporarily is in a dormant state. This may sometimes happen during physical intimacy or when you're both witnessing the miracle of childbirth. So these are moments where you can really feel present in your life. Is when you are in sex, because although honestly, sometimes, well, not when you are about to finish. When you're about to finish, there's usually nothing else in the mind besides finishing. But at some point during sex, your mind could be fleeting, and you might be wondering if the door is locked or not. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And then he says, true communication is communion, the realization of oneness, which is love. Usually, this is quickly lost again, unless you are able to stay present enough to keep out the mind in its old patterns. As soon as the mind and mind identification returns, you are no longer yourself, but a mental image of yourself. And you start playing games and roles again to get your ego's needs met. You are a human mind again, pretending to be human being, interacting with another mind, playing a drama called love. So essentially, a lot of us like drama in our relationships. Once again, why do we like drama in our relationships? Because people like pain, people like suffering, and a lot of people are used to seeing relationships that have drama, that have pain. It's to the point that if they don't have that pain and that drama, they think something is wrong with that person. I've seen a bunch of memes on the internet that they're like, oh, if a girl is chill and she doesn't get on your nerves and blah, 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 that means that she's a man. Or I'm not joking. Or if your girl doesn't do this and you know she seems cool, whatever, she's crazy. Like we struggle to accept that there are people on this world that are just chill people that are not looking to cause drama in their relationships and that they just want to be happy. We don't like that because we within ourselves are not happy. So we can fathom that someone is happy.
Why are y'all so
because
happy?
We're so unhappy.
What y'all giggling about?
People be having an attitude. Right. And we have to say, JP and I do be having lots of inside jokes.
They be like, we can't hang out with y'all. Y'all married folks. We can't hang out with y'all because y'all make us unhappy. And I think that's why some of our friends are like, we can't hang out with you.
Some of our friends have canceled us.
Canceled us. It's okay when we were just dating, but now that we're together, that marriage energy just brings up pain within them that they don't have what we have.
And it's also a reminder that you haven't accomplished the thing that you quote unquote were supposed to accomplish.
That's a good point.
Sometimes if you have a married friend and you yourself, somebody's looking for it for us. Thank you, Sharon. So on the whole thing about masturbation, someone dropped something for us so we can reference it.
On our IG.
1 Corinthians 6:18. Helpful votes flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. So when I read that, I interpret that as you sinning against your own body is you not loving yourself. You not caring for your body. You're not caring for you. It's you not doing the things that will make you healthy, that will make you a joyful person. That's how I would interpret that. But I can certainly see how people can utilize that to say something else because it's data and people can say anything they want with data. Okay. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual immoral person sins against his own body.
So masturbation is sexually immoral.
Because you're sinning against your own body because you're touching yourself.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. But what if it's a massage? You're also touching yourself.
Technicality. He don't say anything about massaging.
Technicality. Thank you, Sharon, for dropping that for us.
You were asking me to massage your butt, so does that count?
You're my husband. Once you a husband, it's fine. Everything goes.
She been getting them squats in, so I need to.
Everything goes. She needs to go massage the booty. All right, go ahead to the next one.
Yeah, we got a last paragraph. Yeah. So, lastly, before we wrap it up, guys, although brief glimpses are possible, love cannot flourish unless you are permanently free of mind identification, and your presence is intense enough to have dissolved the pain body. Or at least you can remain present as the watcher. Mm-hmm. The pain body cannot then take you over and so become destructive of love.
Okay, so if you're joining us for the first time, we're going to give you a quick lesson on what these things are. The pain body is all the pain that you've gone through in your life in the past that you haven't processed. That is still lingering in your body. And it has now that energy, because energy cannot be destroyed, is living within you. So when he says the pain body, he's referring to the energy within you that you haven't processed from experiences in which you were hurt. That can be as big as a breakup, or it could be as little as you being a kid and your parent telling you no to something that was important to you.
Right.
If you haven't processed none of that stuff, it's still living within you. So that's the pain body.
And mind identification is the things that we identify with, maybe it's possessions, our past, our accomplishments, all things that the mind thinks are important versus what is actually important here in the now.
And believing what is in the mind too. Yes. So if your mind says that you're dumb, you're stupid, you're not good enough, you're never going to accomplish anything, that's mind identification. So it's believing your thoughts, thinking your thoughts are true, and believing what they say. Yeah. And the ego, it's the idea of who you think you need to be. It's the person that in your head is the perfect version of you. And a lot of us, we all have that version of ourselves. And you get that from your family, from your environment, from your school, from your peers. That's where that comes from. So essentially, Eckhart says that you can have glimpses of love, of like true love, but you cannot experience that glimpse cannot flourish if you're still believing the things that are in your mind. And if you haven't processed the pain that's within you from your life, that from things that hurt you in the past. So if you would like to experience that true love that Eckhart is talking about, you have to process that pain body, release that pain body. And you have to stop at believing your thoughts. That's what he says. And that's where we're going to end tonight, because it's late and we're going to be
here for another hour at least.
And this is going to take a minute. So tomorrow we'll do part 2 of this.
We may give y'all with a double dose tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow we might do part 2 during the day, and in the evening we may go into the next chapter, which is called Beyond Happiness. And on happiness,
Basically, she's going to box it though, so we'll see how she feels after she get back from knocking them out.
Yeah. And if you're wondering, our next reading, we have our book selected, which we're going to start on Friday. It's called The 5 Love Languages. This is going to be our next book we're going to read, and we're going to kick this book off on Friday. Let us know if you took the quiz, if you read it, if you're using it. What is your love language? We want to know. I believe my love language is what I told you was quality time. Yeah. Quality time is the predominant love language of mine.
Mine is physical touch.
And JP's is physical touch. He likes it when I touch his body.
Yeah, she's gonna touch it tonight.
Okay, thanks.
After dark. All right, guys. Appreciate you joining in. Who dropped the verse for us? Who did the research?
Sharon.
Thank you for the research.
Yes, thank you, Sharon.
We appreciate it for adding to the conversation.
Seriously, that was really sweet of you, and we're grateful for you spending time with us this late.
Yep.
All right,
everybody. Bedtime.
Everybody.
I need a snack before I go to bed, though.
Adieu. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you for spending time with us. This was dope, and I was yawning through most of it because that's how tired I am, but you hung in there, and we're grateful for that.
All right, guys.
Hasta mañana.
Hasta luego.
Bye. Let's end here in live video. Share that here. Rated PG-13. I don't even know what that is. And let's close this here too. Bye, y'all.
When did you see 13 at?
Not here.